this is Chucky K, and welcome for another edition of the Fireside Chat. Apologies if I sound tired, it's because I am. But I have been putting off doing anything in regards to the retrospective for the community day for a very long time as is. And considering how the fact that I haven't even recorded yet, let alone edited, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a whole month before I get this community day retrospective out. But at least it's a big enough community day that maybe that'll justify the time that it took. For those of you who don't remember, in December we had a 2-day long community day as pretty much a retrospective or a look back on all the community days we've had in 2019. I'm not going to go over the details of exactly what spawns were relevant when, because honestly it's kind of irrelevant at this point. But essentially we had a situation where all the Pokemon that were featured in 2019 community days, so we had a situation where all 2019 Pokemon were featured for this community day. Essentially, all the spawns revolved around these Pokemon, and for essentially 24 hours, 12 hours on Saturday and 12 hours on Sunday, you could see these Pokemon for yourself. And how they handle it was, they still had a 3-hour window, but during that time frame, you're restricted to pretty much half of the 2019 spawns on one day, and the other half on the other day. And those Pokemon that were quote-unquote featured in those hours were the ones that got the full evolution, got the full community day shiny odds. You can still find spawns for all the other community day Pokemon from the year outside and within the window, but they were normal shiny odds. In addition, if you missed out on some stuff in 2018, you weren't completely out of luck. For one, you're allowed to evolve up to the community day move for both 2018 and 2019 Pokemon, as well as the 2018 Pokemon being featured in eggs that you collect during the event, as well as featured in raids. I personally had more luck with the 2019, getting what I wanted out of that, than with the 2020. But maybe I'd just pull up my spawns and start scrolling down too, because I got a lot of scrolling to do. The point where community day spawns were relevant. I think I made a good skip right around here. But even though it wasn't the most lucky I had with a community day, I had a few goals. I didn't quite reach all of them, but I did have enough where it wasn't really worth complaining. Essentially, my goals were to get all my evols done, including Eevees into Umbreons, so I could actually finally have a last resort Umbreon. And as you can see here, I did so. Got a shiny Eevee with decent PvP IVs evolved up, as well as this Flower Crown Umbreon. Both of them have Last Resort, which is very, very nice. My next goal was to get a good IV shiny Charmander and evolve it up for Community Day. That one might have been asking for a little bit too much, because with all of the Community Day spawns from 2018 that they had to throw in the gyms, there wasn't quite room to have them all featured in their highest of glory. I did find a couple Charmander raids, but no luck. I tried to focus on Charmanders and Charmeleon during that raid day that they had. I drove around way more than I would have liked, and unfortunately didn't find the shiny Charmander / Million I was looking for. It's not the end of the world because I do have one. I just don't know if I want to power it up because it wasn't the best in IVs. Now, why am I struggling so much to actually find my shinies? I haven't released any yet. Here they are. It's just like they're mixed in with like all the other shadow Pokemon I've yet to really clean up. My other major goal from Community Day was to make up for the lost hour I had with Ralph's Community Day. Because it was a shiny I was looking most forward to, so of course it would have been the Community Day I had to leave early. But I feel like I made up for it. I think now's a good time as any to go over some of my haul from Community Day. Got a few shadow Pokemon sitting around. Got this pretty nice looking Slack Off. Make a nice Vigor Off for PvP. And you know what? I have the Candy Despair, so I'll just evolve it up now. Saturday actually wasn't the greatest for me. It kind of got rained out. I went to my typical Community Day area, and to be honest, I think it's very close to not being the typical Community Day playing area these days, because people don't like to hang out around that area anymore, unfortunately. And I think this is the worst that has ever been. It's kind of always been like a empty area that's hard to actually play unless someone lures it up. But it's a huge line of just Pokestops in a straight line. You can just walk back and forth and grind. Plenty of walkways, or pretty nice long sidewalk to walk along. So as long as it gets lured up, it's usually fine. But unfortunately, this was the year no one lured it up. And the community experience suffered a bit because of that. But I think the real reason it sucked was I basically got rained out. No one was around, probably because it was cold and raining. To the point where I was like wishing. I think I actually like posted on Twitter near the end that I would rather be playing in the snow than raining. But the part I didn't mention was shortly after that tweet, it started snowing. You know, the urban legends. You complain about something on Twitter and it becomes true. Or the world alleviates your problems. That's why everyone complains on Twitter. But yeah, I essentially like try to do half hour, 45 minutes walking down that path for the first hour. Then I got sick of the rain, so I just jumped in my car, went over to the park that was like very, very close by, and see what I could do driving around. I got sick of being in the car because I wasn't driving and playing, so I had to like park every like 5 seconds to check the shinies, move on, park again. So I kind of just gave up on that day and went grocery shopping for a couple hours. Yeah, it was just that bad of a community experience to BH. Now I had a fine time because I had to take care of those errands eventually. I was originally going to do it after Community Day was over, but the fact that I did them before Community Day, or during Community Day, just meant that I was able to have more time at home. And it wasn't the very last I played. I essentially went for lunch after I did the grocery shopping and the Community Day hour was still going on. So I just plopped up a lure and had that running while I was eating. I think I was watching a YouTube video that I wanted to watch too, so it was a nice lunch. Got to have my Pokemon, got to eat, and got to watch videos at the same time. Forget to mention, like, these two Swinubs were the only thing I found in the first hour and a half before I gave up and went grocery shopping. And I think it's because it was a Swinub nest. Like, I found these Swinubs when I started driving around the park, and so many of the spawns were Swinubs during that time frame. This Bagon I actually didn't find until I had the lure set up on lunch, and it was like the last thing I did. So pretty much right around that time I was finishing up my lunch, and I'm like, there's still like a half hour left to go. I'm gonna just get out of here and grind that path one more time and try to get what I can. And I think I got that shiny slack off somewhere along the line. So it wasn't that great of a community day. Kind of sucks because I was hoping to meet up with some friends and they never showed up. But at least I got some shinies out of it. A fair amount considering I didn't play for the whole 3 hours, I suppose. But definitely not as good as if I just went up to the college. It's just a long drive for me because my typical community walk area is like 15-20 minutes away. The college is like closer to half an hour, 45 minutes away. So you can see why I would prefer my typical area, despite the fact that the spawn pool is so much more plentiful over up in the college. Speaking of the college, my game plan from the start was to spend like Saturday closer to home and go up to Sunday for the college because I wanted to catch up on Lost Grounds with the routes. And as you can see, I definitely more than made up for it. Like, oh my god, it is ridiculous of how many shiny Chimchars and routes I found that day. The routes I could understand because it was actually windy in the game the whole time, so route spawns were boosted as is. But Chimchar, I don't know what demigod I heard it to get so many shiny Chimchars. It's just crazy. I won't complain, but I'm definitely dumping some of these shiny Chimchars eventually because I did play so much of that community day. I think it was like maybe, frick, I have the tweet. I had to post up on the Instagram, but I already forgot. It definitely was at least 1 hour. I think it might have been even an hour and a half, 2 hours, before my first shiny that was not a route or a Chimchar. I can't express how happy I was to actually find this happy little Dino Boy that the game won't let me like rotate the camera around to showcase for some reason. There we go. Come back, little friend. Hello. Okay, what's throwing me off is like he's so small, and I just want to tap his face and rotate him, but no, I have to like put my thumb in the center still. Because below where his face actually is where the game registers as me swiping to the next Pokemon instead of, you know, just trying to rotate the guy. And it also helps that like my next shiny was some shiny Mudkip. And just like, it's more than just luck, I will admit. The spawns were so much better up in the college. Makes me wish I played there both days, but it's be kind of hard to justify doing basically the drive length to my job and back 2 days in a row when my weekend's supposed to be like a break from driving. Because for those of you who don't know, I have like an hour-long commute mostly every day. Because I live in a bit of a, I'll say it's a rural area. So there's not really too much company work going on until you get to the city that's like 45 minutes away. More like an hour with the traffic. But it is what it is. For the fun of it, I think I'm going to count up real quick how many routes and Chimchars I got. 2, 3, 4, 6. 6 shiny routes and 2, 4, 5, 6 Chimchars. It looks like I had way more Chimchars than routes for some reason, but I guess it's just the way it worked out. And also got 2 shiny Trapinch and 1 shiny Mudkip. Kind of wish I had like more Mudkips and less Chimchars, but you can't fickle RNG. A quick shout out to my gold Barbolch that I now have. I just caught him like the other day when I was walking to college. It was nice because honestly, speaking of ghost towns, last night was pretty much the first time the college was so empty and I couldn't like even find people to do raids with. But to be fair, it's a college town, or it's a college campus. during the week of Christmas. So everyone's probably just gone home to spend time with their families. I can't be too disappointed on that or too surprised. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about shiny-wise for that? Because I don't want to actually spend the whole time rambling about Community Day. I thought it might be a fun topic to actually talk about Community Day 2020 a bit, because like I've been trying to make more of a habit of my podcast being more like editorials, not just like repeating the news, talking about my experience, but just like give little histories of things that relate to the game and editorials, as I sometimes refer to the show as. And I can't really think of anything too much. I did like a lot of my mainstays on the Purify team are now kind of ready to go. Like I have a SmackDown return, Triantar for what it's worth. Unfortunately, like with Return getting nerfed, I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna like need that for anything anytime soon. But I guess it's just like PvP. It apparently functions very similarly to raids and gyms, which is unfortunate because you never need a normal type move for those sort of things. But it is there. Let's see. Could sworn that there was like a couple others that I evolved on here that would be useful to have. Oh yeah. Got my Marsh Stomp with the community move now, Purified and all. And I got my Charizard with the Purified move. That's the other reason I guess I'm not more upset about not getting the shiny Charmander Charizard. Because I've done a lot of Charizard evolving. I know it's like I had like a lot of crummy Charizards from when Community Day past been around. But I more than made up for it with the evolutions I made this time. Got a good Ultra League Charizard here. Not that I really want to do Ultra League, but I feel like Niantic's forcing my hand. I probably just won't jump in right away, but when I'm ready to invest the Stardust, it'll be there. More so, I have a pretty nice Great League Charizard to work with. So there is that. Guess I can go over the other moves real quick and see if anything stands out in that regard. Doesn't look like I've done any new Venusaurs. I was tempted to evolve Wez into a Blastoise during the Community Day event, but I think I ultimately decided like part of the appeal I should say of Wez is just being a Squirtle and having him be like the Pikachu like mascot for my AR photo series thing, so it worked to keep him that way. I think I evolved a new Meganium. Indeed I did, just a matter of if I want to like spend its Stardust on the scale. Because like Timeless Cup is pretty much over. Unfortunately, like I tried to do more than one tournament of that this year, but it didn't really work out because second tournament was kind of like on the last day I had off right in the evening, so I didn't want to be out that late when I had work the following day. If I was at work already, I could have at least gone to it on my way home instead of pretty much like driving back up to that area. Alright, I'm gonna put the game down now so we can actually go into the second thing I want to talk about with this editorial. See y'all in a sec. Welcome back. So now that we reflected on the last Community Day for 2019, I want to take a little time to project forward and take a look and imagine the future of Community Day 2020. For one, I'm going to just throw right out the back, I would not be disappointed with a few mix-ups. Community Days have fallen into a bit of a pattern, and while there's nice things and benefits about the patterns that have developed, Not only would it be interesting to see them throw some unique elements and continue to experiment even more so with community days. For example, we've had like community days where they come out of eggs, out of field research, and some of these experimentations that Niantic has done have been positively received, negatively received, and I myself have had things that I like and dislike about it. Like, I love the fact that they're throwing golden raspberries into the research pool now. On one hand, people like me who at least have spurs of raiding frequently probably already have a good bundle of golden raspberries as is, but this is very good for the casual crowd, especially for people like who don't normally actively play, but get out together to have community day with friends and family. Because the golden raspberry could be the one thing that saves your shiny, lets you secure it and all that. So I think rewarding people that for being involved with research on community day is perfect. In a similar effect, I wouldn't mind them continuing to explore the idea of throwing the community day Pokemon into research. Feels like Niantic's been trying to find a way to please all people, especially with the fact that when you find a shiny in the wild, it can be any sort of IV range. And I feel like Niantic's trying to find a good way to allow people to actually shiny hunt and have a fair amount of IVs on the Pokemon that they find. That's where the eggs came through, with the severe backlash they got back. Why we've sometimes seen them in raids. And personally, I think having them count as rewards for research is the best way to approach all that. There's pros and cons to each one of them, including field research. Because I can imagine, like, if you're hunting for items to catch more Pokemon with from field research, but you keep getting ones that just give you more Pokemon that you're already seeing in the wild, and you have community in an area that doesn't have too many field research. I see where you're coming from. I see why that may not be a great thing, but I think having the option to get higher IV Pokemon on a day that you're shiny hunting is a good thing, and I think field research is the lesser of the evils that they've done. Because with raids, I personally would prefer if they focus around the legendary Pokemon, because for a lot of community days, community day is where the most people come together, and they'll have the best chance to actually do a raid that they normally wouldn't have enough people to do. I could see room for a compromise, like a mixture between raids of 5-star and 1-star raids. They give you access to the community day Pokemon. In a perfect world, a gym would become special on community day and would pop up both. And you could like toggle between taking it on yourself to get the community day Pokemon or taking it on with a group of friends to get a legendary Pokemon. That's at least the way I view that. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if field research came back in the future. But let's get a little bit more radical than that. For one, let's talk back about the whole patterns of community day. We've kind of had like a rotation between a starter and a non-starter that is semi-rare, and occasionally we get a screwball like when Eevee was in community day. If we're going to talk about patterns, a lot of times they're Pokemon that evolve twice. You have your base form, a middle form, and a final evolution. I personally try to ignore this pattern more than a lot of people because I feel like this is the easiest pattern to break and is the most likely one to break. It has been broken in the past with screwballs and all that. But I think we can get a little more crazy. Another common trend of Community Day is the fact that the shiny form of the Pokemon will be released for the first time in Community Day. And before you ask, yes, I know Pikachu technically had a shiny out before the original Community Day, but I give that a pass because it's the very first Community Day, and Shiny Pikachu was still fairly rare at the time. We didn't have too many shinies in general when Pikachu Community Day first was a thing. And I feel like that Community Day being the first one in general was a very experimental time for Niantic, and they were still wetting their feet on what got people coming and what made people go, I'll just stay home. Pondering this whole pattern a little bit more, after Pikachu Community Day, all Community Days had a special move that you could only get by evolving the Pokemon all the way up to its final form. This was how Community Days got interesting for hardcore players, because occasionally a move would be released for Community Day that did fairly well in the meta. Back when raids were the only thing around, moves like Blast Burn, Frenzy Plant, and Hydro Cannon really got people's eyes because they were the strongest moves of those types in the game. When PvP became a thing, this became even more interesting because PvP in general just opened up the doors to desirable Pokemon. Not only are the Community Days moves useful for a wider range of Pokemon and not just the strongest, they also give Pokemon a lot. There's also been situations where they really significantly increase a Pokemon's move diversity. Umbreon being a perfect example of this. Umbreon can only normally learn Dark-type moves, but Last Resort is a Normal-type move, which gives it neutral coverage against a lot of things that would normally be resist. Plus, Last Resort is fairly powerful, and a big reason that it's ignored is due to the fact that it's a Normal-type move, which doesn't do too much in the raid meta because of just how valuable super effective moves are. So if you have a move that is neutral damage or worse against everything, it kind of gets ignored. And actually, I think I want to cut myself off here. I actually end up going really deep into this conversation of Community Day speculation for 2020, including exploring some Community Day Pokemon options that some people might normally ignore, and possibly even some different ways that we can spice up Community Day so we're not completely reliant on brand new shinies of super special Pokemon to keep it exciting. If you want to hear more about that, be sure to tune in. Stay followed, subscribe, whatever feed you're using. Do the option that lets you see new updates. I do shoot to have podcasts twice a month at the very least. Though I got so many things in mind, I might actually do 3 podcasts a month this particular month. But even if I don't, I do have other additional content that I upload on this feed, so you get something every week. Like, I've been lately uploading PvP commentaries, and I have a series on YouTube called Gaming Chill that I've decided that I could use for filler weeks, since it's pretty much just me chatting about my life while playing some mobile games including Pokemon Go, so it feels like it fits into this feed better than some of the other YouTube content I do. All that said, site will be in the show notes if you want to learn more about what I do, and I'll see y'all for the next one. Take care.